Thank you for coming through this afternoon. I always wonder why no one ever wants to sit on the front row, just into the distance, like glaring into your eyes, like amazing, like setting as well. We're here to talk to you about where you can get these amazing fairy lights from. No, we're not. Oh, tricked you. No, we are, of course, here to discuss releasing records and getting signed. My name is Ben Random. I'm going to be the host and chair of the chat. I'm going to pass you over to our respective panel. They're going to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask them a few questions, hopefully give you some pearls of wisdom and nuggets from these wise Jedis, and then we'll throw it open to yourselves. If there's any questions, there'll be a mic that'll be going around as well. So just wait until the mic comes speaking of that, and we'll get you sorted. Over to you.
Hello, I'm Thea and I work for the Leaf label that is based in Leeds but comes from London and has been up here for 15 years or so. And I do mainly promotion for the label, but I do a lot of A&R as well.
Hi, I'm Bonar Bradberry. I'm a producer, a DJ, but I've also worked at independent record labels and have been signed to independents and majors, and also done a little bit of self-releasing on vinyl as well.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Connolly. I studied here 10 years ago, and off the back of that, did some time as a label manager for a label from here called 2020 Vision, which Tristan Bonar was also involved in. And then after that, now I've got a couple of my own labels. One which is called Needs, which is a charity label, where each release is for like a different cause, and we raise money and awareness for different things like mental health and homelessness and gender equality. And then I've got another one which is more just my project for working on with artists and working on full EPs that I kind of into more to my personal taste. Which is called? Pleasure Club.
Yeah, it's cool. My name's Tristan Da Cunha. I think most people know me primarily as a DJ, but I've been working in the music industry for about over 20 years now. Working at labels, working independently on my own, and producing music as well. I've got a label called Dungeon Meat, which I do with another person, and I also have just started a new label called Hallucinate as well, which is attached to a kind of a party that I do as well. So yeah, I've been had my fingers in a few pies over the years. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. So now that we're all acquainted, I'd like to get the ball rolling with the ones of you who've actually come in from it as an artist point of view before we get into the label side. So I'll start with you, brother. What would you say was the main factor into getting signed? Like, what's the sort of catalyst? What was the opening nugget where you thought, right, I'm at a point now, I want to start approaching people? How far into your DJ career was that?
I don't know whether I'm the best person to ask about that, really, because I've always been a bit more of a DIY kind of person. I've never really been that person to send out demos, and I've always been quite precious about my own music and wanted to present it in my own way. So I've not really kind of done much of the Dungeon Meat. Well, Dungeon Meat was my own label, though. With Jeremy? Oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah. Well, I mean, so I have worked mostly with friends. I think that's been a crucial factor in sort of my success as well, is working with people that I know and people that I love. And that's made things a hell of a lot easier than just kind of firing stuff out, you know, in shooting in the dark and hoping that people will like it and accept it. I've worked mostly with people who are kind of on a very similar wavelength to me, and that's helped me, you know, along the way.
That sounds very organic. Do you think that's something that's very key to longevity of it? Because
I definitely do, yeah.
I'm sure with you being a resident and, you know, on the scene for a while, you'll have come across people who have sort of just sent out, and I suppose that can become quite exhausting for them.
I think so. It can be quite demoralising as well for a lot of people because, you know, they're sending out stuff. But it can be quite demoralising. But on the flip side of that, it can also be quite, it can
motivator.
motivate them as well to think, well, actually, I'm just going to do it myself now, because I think nowadays in this day and age, you can do it yourself more than ever, really. You know, the tools are there. Literally at your fingertips now. You know, you've got everything online, and you've got you know, your friends who are probably doing something. You can easily find the contacts out and stuff. And there's a few key things in obviously getting your music heard and getting your music out there, and they're all quite accessible now. So yeah, organic I think is the best way to go if you can. It can be quite the scenic route sometimes. But I think that is probably the better way to go, because a lot of the time the fast track can be quickly up, and it can also be quickly down as well. So there's a lot to be said with kind of letting things just kind of organically grow and move. You have to have a bit of patience, and you have to have a bit of perseverance. But I think those are two great qualities to actually develop within the music industry.
Perfect. And so bring it over here then, because you said you've been signed to majors as well.
Yeah.
What comes with the insight of that? Is it very much contract demanding? You've got a timeline to produce stuff?
I think my experience with major labels was slightly different in that we already had a finished product ready to go, and so the label took that as it was, like as an album and in an order and a track order, so there was never any kind of back and forth A&R. So I haven't really experienced that side of things in terms of the mechanics of a major, but the big difference from going with an independent with someone that you know and trust and a person you've built up a relationship with is just the timescales that stuff takes to kind of get released and approved, and you know, budgets and different things.
Who decides that? Do you have a say in that?
Yeah, well, I think if you stand your ground and you're sort of savvy enough and you have like a good management team around you and stuff, then, or just know your own mind and know what you want from something. But yeah, I think maybe if you're a bit naive, it's probably easy to get kind of steamrolled into doing things and promoting it in ways that you don't want to. But I think my interaction with a major label has come in the last couple of years. So that's like 10 years into releasing records and probably 20 years into DJing. So I kind of already knew,
Knew the game.
Yeah, I knew what I would be willing to give away and what I wouldn't be. So
was that always an objective then to be signed? Did they approach you? Or
it was pretty much that we were. I should explain. I also produced music with a friend of mine, Tom Thorpe, as PBR Streetgang, and we'd written an album and were kind of really looking for a home for it. It wasn't particularly that it was that; it was just that they came to us with a really interesting offer and a really good vehicle to promote it. Really, yeah.
Would you say that that's definitely heightened with, I'd say, over the past definitely few years? I mean, you've been in the game for a while, but there definitely seems linking with the organic nature of the momentum of when you're playing out and about. So did it feel like that was also garnering interest from labels because of your presence? Yeah,
potentially. I think I really agree with Triss's point about letting things grow organically. It's very much what's the route I've taken as well, in terms of, little by little, release on different labels and do a few yourself and take it that way. So I guess it's that thing of just being out there in the, scene for a period of time before people go, oh, maybe that's, it's about time that, we sort of give these guys a crack at, releasing an album with us. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of, momentum's needed. Whatever, it's nothing in isolation, like just one single out on something is going to change anything these days, or a mix on a really hot website, or that it's, that's not going to do it. It has to be a progressive kind of movement, momentum of 5 or 6 things before I think things kind of change for you.
Cool. Now, speaking about momentum, it seems to be kicking off for you at the moment. Resident at Fabric. Bluh, bluh. Killing bits, mate. Respect. I remember we spoke probably a couple of years ago down in a boozer down in London town, and you were sort of at that point where it was make or break in your own mind. You devoted a lot to it.
Been at that point a few times.
So obviously, I mean, perseverance is definitely key. But what's come out of that is not only yourself as an artist, but then with the the label side as well. Was it at this make or break moment where it was like, you know what, this is the tangent where I want to actually just do it myself and make my own label and sort of scout for people like-minded and build your own sort of DJ Wu-Tang Clan?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, I mean, for all of us, I'm sure it's the same. Music's a complete obsession. So it's like, I say it's make or break, and it has been a few times, but really, none of us are ever stopping. You know, it's like, I'll never stop on any level doing it. But it's like, it's quite a lonely game, you know, as well. Depends how you're navigating yourself. But for me, I've always been a bit of a one-man ship, and I know it's the same for other people, and it's quite lonely, you know. There's no one like patting you on the back, going like, you know, keep going, you know, you're doing really well. And yeah, I suppose it's kind of, I think what Tris was saying was really bang on about kind of perseverance and longevity. And the longer you're in it, I think the more you realise what you want from it, the more your taste is developing all the time. You know, like the whole up and down thing when you're younger. I mean, obviously at the time it seems like the best thing, but actually the older you get, if you're still in it and it is an obsession and you're going to stick with it, your taste is constantly refining, and you get to a point where you really know who you are is really important. I think to know who you are and what you want from it, what you want to say, the message you want to deliver, all that stuff's really, really important. And then, yeah, of course, then I did the labels, and that was always a natural thing anyway, because I always kind of have been a bit of I always loved, you know, A&Ring a bit and finding new music. And I know Tris is the same, and I know you was A&R as well at 2020. It's like hearing something you love and messaging the artist on Facebook and getting in touch. And I've always been like that since I was at uni in Leeds. I've always been like that way inclined. So it was always naturally going to happen. And then, yeah, it's just working hard, man. Like I said, it's an obsession, and it's like something that I'm on all the time. You know, it's like it's an everyday thing. It ain't like it's every day I'm doing something, and you have to kind of remind yourself. The hard thing is, because you're on your own, you have to remind yourself that like what you're doing is actually your work.
Yeah.
It's actually your work, because it's like, for some people, it's like, oh, you've got the best job. But it's like you do it, you know, you spending 2 hours, just now from a DJ perspective, like you spending 2 hours online digging for tunes, to someone else, that's not a job, but it is a job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But you have to remind yourself that it is. And once you kind of get into that, you know, I think yeah, and it's just working hard, really. And also, like what Tris was saying as well about your friends and who you're moving with, I think is really important. I think who you're moving with is really, really important. It's like, you should feel out your depth, you know? You should feel not good enough at times. It's okay to feel like that, because I think, you know, you have to sink or swim. You throw yourself in, and you have to compete at that level, you know? Even if you're rolling with people and you're like, they're way better than me or whatever, it's like, you kind of have to, I think, because otherwise you'll never, that takes you to the next level, you know. It's like when I got the job at 2020, I'd never been a label manager. It was a 20-year-old record label. I was shadowing the label manager at the time, and then he left, and then he went to R&S, and then he said, luckily, you know, they had a chat and they passed me on the job. I didn't know what I was doing, you know. I really didn't know what I was doing, and this is like, it's quite a big thing. There's a big back catalogue, there's a lot to do, there's a lot of royalty statements, there's a lot to it, there's a publishing arm to it, there's a lot of different things, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, you know, because by the end of it, I'm an accomplished label manager, you know, of a pretty reputable, you know, label in English electronic music, and it's so don't be afraid to throw yourself in at the deep end and push yourself and push yourself in the level that maybe you're not comfortable would be like a big advice for me, because that's kind of how it happened for me very naturally, and it was a blessing, you know, scary blessing that worked out, you know. But just working hard really and being obsessive about it, I think, is the only thing I can say on that, really.
Respect, brother. Yeah. Now, have you ever had ambitions to be an artist, or where was your sort of interest in the music game, and how did you see your avenue into where you are now?
Well, I started as a DJ, and I still am a DJ, and that was always the most important part of it, just because picking out new and old tunes from what I heard at uni, and then beyond that, and then what I've heard since then. So it kind of just started from that. The obsession, like you say, is something you're just doing all the time. And then I worked for a press company. I didn't like any of the music that I was working on, so I then kind of went into the opposite side just to almost piss everybody off that I was working with, which was pretty much electronic and jazz music. And then because Leeds is kind of quite a small place in terms of the music scene, and I think it's growing now, but I just got picked out of a small bunch to work for the Leaf label, and since then it just kind of grew I'm kind of at that point now, like you say, where I'm just constantly refining my music taste. And it's the most exciting part, I think, where you didn't know this artist and you didn't realize they worked with them, and I don't know, they're super old and maybe some of them are dead. But for me, it's the first time and it's the most exciting time. And then with Leaf, that it's been finding artists. It's the same as most independent labels. It is a lot of sitting online, listening to radio mixes and trying to find something that you think is interesting and new and exciting. And a lot of electronic music I find quite difficult to sift through because there's a lot of the same. And for Leaf, it does have quite an eclectic sound. There is something that I'm looking for. It can't just be something that I think would sell loads of records, because that's not what Leaf's about. It's got to have something special and innovative and exciting. So that's kind of my everyday life, and yeah, it's very fun.
I'd like to ask you all, because I'm sure there's people who are DJs out there, producers. We've got any DJs and producers in the house? Inside. I'll seize you. Good 50. Good for 51. Let's half full. Glass half full. And some of you may be pondering as well, tempted to actually look to set up your own label, may have your own musical taste. I'd like to ask you all, if in a percentage realm, how much of you is label and how much of you is DJ, and also do they detract or complement one another?
I think they definitely complement each other, because whenever you're hearing new music, I'm mostly thinking, oh, that would sound incredible on top of that. And, oh, this is this artist. And as a label that has a sound, you're thinking, how can I mash this with that? And also, it's the excitement of releasing records. The physical product is such an important part of it. If, as a DJ, there's only two of us that are DJs. Tony, who's been running Leaf since '92, is an incredible DJ, and he's put me onto loads of great music. And the physical collecting, and you have to be a super avid music fan to collect such, and be into the product itself. I mean, it's the way it looks, it's the sound and everything. That's the most exciting part of it.
So would you say you wake up and they're basically the same shoes in one sense? You're not like working for a label and a DJ. The two do complement each other. It's not like devoting specific time to each, or does one detract from the other? That's sort of what I'm looking to get.
For me, no. I don't know if it's different for other people.
So for me, for my example, for the labels that I do, my main market is DJs. That's who I kind of aim my music towards. I think about my product, my music, as in how long it's going to stay in a record bag, how much value it's going to have to a DJ. So I try and make each EP a kind of like a DJ penknife in a way. It's got something for maybe all different kinds of points in the night. So it might have something for a bit earlier on in the night, it might have something for peak time, and it might have something for after hours. And that little B2, that little B-side track might be something that's just a bit overlooked, and people might pull it out in after hours and go, oh shit, this is the bollocks, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So it's about, and that's what I want as a DJ. For me, when I buy a record, I want that from something, I want something that's got some, obviously we buy records that have got one amazing track on, and we don't really, we're not really bothered about the rest or something. But then maybe I might be more tempted to just download it or something, So, I really want the vinyl to, be attractive. I think of it as like bees, I'm attracting bees to the flowers, So when they go into the record shop, I want them to, I want the bees. I want them to, yeah, exactly. I want the bees to be hovering around it, So I want it to look nice. I want it to be attractive. I want it to look how it sounds. So all these things for me are like how I psychologically am as a DJ. So I apply all that knowledge into how I approach, how I make my product, and it works. I seem to have a very good hit rate with how my records sell. Applying that, so for me, in your answer to your question, the two are inextricably linked. You know, as a DJ, I'm talking to DJs because at the end of the day, that's pretty much majority of the market who's buying the records. You know, there's obviously this market of high fidelity albums, people buying, you know, stuff from Japan and all these albums, these really nice 180 gram, you know, things or whatever, you know, and that's great as well, you know, but it's the long player, it's a different kind of market, you know. For me, I'm in the 12-inch market, EPs, you know, 12 inches, and that's DJs. That's people who will go to the record shop every weekend, and they're either playing in clubs, or they're playing at parties, or they're playing at after hours, or they're playing with their mates, or they're collecting. They've all got a record bag. They've all got this. So that's who I'm talking to, and that's how I use my DJ sort of announce. Announce, is that a word?
I will say announce. I love that. If you want to pass the mic over.
So
but just before you start, one thing that came across in how you just spoke then was the focused directness. You know the pinpoint of who you're after, and I definitely think that is key.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to know your market at the end of the day, and you're just firing it out there. You know you're not going to always hit the target if you just like, you know, if you like, you know, then you're going to have
Rambo.
Yeah, exactly. Don't push me. You're gonna hit the target if you know. It's like getting in a car. You don't get in a car and get to where you're going if you don't know where you want to go. You know what I mean? So having that idea about, you know, who and what and where and how, you know, is all part of it. And you don't always have to know all of those things, you know, but to have a good sense of it and a good feeling. You know, you've got to have a good feeling behind something, and that's what people can actually feel as well. You know, they don't necessarily know or understand what's behind it, but if they can feel the music, if they can feel how you're putting it out there, if they can feel your vibe, then I think that's what people connect with, and I think that's what people buy into as well, is that sort of honesty and that sort of authenticity as well, you know? And I think that comes across with knowing who you are, and what you're about, you know? So I think that's really important with putting something out there. And I don't think there's really any point in embarking on doing a project like starting a label, or unless you really have that strong sense of that identity, you know. And that can come through your artists, that can come through you, that can come through your artwork, it can come through the music, it can come through various things, but having that strong sense of identity is what really sets you apart, I think, from other people that are just kind of cloning and copying, really, you know.
Great answer, that.
Yeah, I think Trish has kind of covered it there, really, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, going back to the thing, they are completely inextricably linked. You know, your DJ headspace and in terms of either whether you're thinking, you work for a label and you're thinking of, you know, oh, that would sit with, you know, something that I would like to sign or I would like to release, or, you know, the other way around where you're, you know, wanting to get something signed. I think, yeah, having it from a DJ's point of view is always really helpful. I think all of us being DJs kind of helps inform your decisions when you're in the studio. And, you know, I think most of us were all as well, you know, DJs first, then started to make music rather than the other way around. And that's, you know, not necessarily the path that everyone takes. And it's not necessarily the right one either, but it does definitely give you a certain insight into, electronic music, I think, for getting that signed.
I just wanted to make another point there as well, because Bonar said something about getting music signed as well, because we were talking more from signing music and not from that point of view. And I think it's very important to, as an artist, to know where you fit and you sit as well, you know.
Absolutely.
So getting your music signed is like, well, who do I want to be aligned with? Who do I want to be affiliated with? Who represents me? Where's going to be a good home as well? So having so many times where people go wrong in my experience, from when they've sent me demos or, you know, they've tried to get signed, is they've just fired it out literally like they've done they've done that one, you know, and you get this email and it's like CC'd to about 100 people, or, you know, they're just literally, they're shooting from the hip. They're not really, you know.
It's not personal.
They're not, yeah, exactly. There's none of that sort of personal thing. And, you know, so I think it's better to do, you know, less is more, really, in that respect, and kind of go for what you kind of are really feeling. You know, so if something's really inspiring you, then try and align yourself with that and trying to get yourself in with that. You know, that's the way to do it.
Totally.
Even if it takes you a couple of attempts, you know, then that's what it takes, you know. But you just got to lock onto something and then, you know, and go for that, because that's obviously what's going to be. And if that doesn't work, if you can't get signed by that label or whatever, then you can maybe use their recipe and their model maybe to set something up yourself, you know. Maybe that could be an option.
You should do a TED Talk. Tristan, really. Now, if you want to cover off what everyone's mentioned there, in your own words, obviously, but then can you divulge a bit more into needs as well? And then after Bobby's finished with that, we'll put it to yourselves, ask a few questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I think it was a really good question, actually. Got my mind going a bit. Your initial question was good, and that was a really good answer, because I think the idea is something that I always come back to in terms of like, what's the idea of it, and it should be super clear, I think, now in this day when it's kind of, there's so much, you know, there's so much that if you're doing it, be really clear about what you're doing. And that's why kind of when you asked about how I link myself with a DJ with the labels, that's where needs was the bit of the confusing one, because it's like that actually falls into like a completely different thing for me. That actually isn't, I do associate, obviously it's my taste, you know what I mean? I'm asking artists that I really like if they've got music that they'd like to contribute for a cause.
Could you, just go over what Needs is?
What it is? Yeah, so Needs Not For Profit is something that I set up in 2017, which is basically it's a record label / event series, which we put records out with an event that goes with it, and we do each one's for a charity. So the first one we launched with mental health, we went into homelessness, we did the refugee crisis, we did UN Women, gender equality, the He for She campaign in London. We're just doing the environment this year. We're doing a big thing about climate change and kind of deforestation and stuff. And that was the one where I was puzzled, because I was like, with Pleasure Club, that is definitely me. That's definitely DJ linked. But this one is my music taste linked. Obviously, I mean, if you've got a record label and it's not linked to your music taste, then I'm not really sure what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, obviously, it's linked to my taste. I'm asking artists that I'm into to share music, but it's like I don't really link it with me as a DJ. It's like, actually, it's a different project.
More for the cause.
Yeah, and exactly. It's more for the cause, but also like I see it as like something that I really want to build over the next few years and grow into. It's hard because, like I said, it's me on my own. So it's like there is no team. It's like it's literally I am the team. You know, there's not anyone else with me, because it's difficult. It's a non-for-profit, and I'm not also really clued up on all that. You know.
So it's a non-for-profit. So again, the actual label itself, it's the releases that got all the profit goes to the actual causes itself. So as you say, you've touched on that you did stuff with homelessness, and all the needs went to that specific cause. It was in Manchester, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did one there, and we did one in London as well. But yeah, because obviously with the first, because to be honest, it's an interesting story with Needs, because obviously like for the first three, to be honest, obviously the records weren't really making money. If I'm honest, for the first three, they weren't making money. We were doing events, and the events was where we could make money, and the events was actually like the really exciting bit, because that was really, you can you're bringing people together, and everyone's coming together for the common good.
And you had actual talks as well and things, and it wasn't just about the parties.
No, you do like the first half of the event would be about talks to do with the subject, and then we'd do like a party kind of thing. Not a late one. It wasn't a ravey thing. It was kind of like, you know, it would finish at midnight or whatever, and we'd do talks and the party. But yeah, the first three didn't really do, the first three weren't making no money for charity, and the events were. The events, I saw that as an actual, wow, this is a place where you can make money, because, everyone, that is more scope to make money for charity. But then luckily we got this fortune or whatever, or fate and
the universe.
Yeah, the universe, and we basically we started to attract more high profile artists onto the label. So then like the last couple have done really well. The last couple have sold like, more units than I've ever sold at any label I've worked for or owned. So then I am seeing a return now on vinyl, which is like the first time, really. I've seen bits, but this is like a substantial amount of money that we get maybe for each one now, because we're lucky to work with, more high established artists. But yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and something that I want to kind of really grow and want it to become a massive part of my life. But it's doing its thing, and as and everything's unfolding as it should. But it's I want to take it bigger and do more stuff with it. Yeah,
it's a rather selfless task, really, in the sense of setting that up. Where did the inspiration come from? Because
Donald Trump. Seriously, and Brexit, really. It was kind of like, it was just at the time when I'd left 2020 and that was all happening. It was like all at the same time. It was like Brexit and Donald Trump was all happening kind of at the same time. And I remember just feeling like really disenfranchised with like everything that was going on. I'm sure everyone's kind of felt a little bit like that. You know, I didn't pick up the paper for a while. There was a minute where I was just, I'm not getting involved in this because it's like too depressing, you know, and I don't feel like that about life. That's not how I feel about life. So it was like, so then I just wanted to, it's back to Triss's, the thing about Needs was it was a very clear idea. Do you know what I mean? That's back to what Triss is saying about focus and idea. It was like, I was two schools of thought. I'd left 2020. I wanted to start a record label and I felt really, you know, upset about what I perceived as what was going on in the world. So I thought, what can I do to join the dots? What can I do to use music as a means to kind of, I don't know, one, raise money and awareness for these things that I think are really important, but also hopefully inspire other people, you know, not to sound righteous, but like just to like turn people on to the fact that like it's not actually that difficult to do good. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't, it's like if you're doing it makes you feel good as well. You know, it's a nice thing to do. And
the power of music as well, man. The fact that music can unite and bring people together, which I suppose brings it full circle to the initial passion and obsession that I'm sure we all have with music.
Yeah, totally, mate. Totally. But yeah, no, it's good. It's all good, and there's lots more to come. So yeah, keep an eye out for it. And there's yeah, it's cool.
Respect, man. I feel. Oh, that's a good round of applause. That. Hercules. I've got time for a couple of questions. Perfect. Does anybody want to ask any questions to our wonderful foursome?
Yeah, if anybody's setting up labels or they've got labels or they want a little bit of insight or they want to know about something, then now's probably the time to ask, because I mean we could have talked for hours about this.
Yeah,
really.
Man.
I don't
What's
even feel
this 50-minute
I don't even feel
thing
like
there?
we've even really
My
skimmed
intro
the
was
surface here, because you know there's lots of nuggets that obviously we could have given you guys. There's lots of key factors into having a record label and to obviously being successful. Obviously, some of the key things are having good artists, active artists that are out there that are, you know, touring and that are, you know, being able to fly the flag for you, having a good distribution to get the music out there. Obviously, the good physical product and good online product and good online presence, and also having good relationships with the various platforms, i.e., you know, Bandcamp or the actual physical shops. So there's lots of little different factors that come into actually having a successful record label. So if you've got any questions about any of those things, then feel free to shoot.
We should do a podcast.
I was thinking more of a turd talk rather than a TED talk.
Hello.
Hello. If you've already got like an identity and music ready to go, what would be your roadmap to getting it out on vinyl?
I would first of all think about how you want to approach it. Do you want to put it out yourself and spend all the money on putting it out yourself, or do you and therefore take more risk and have more gain? So there's two factors to that. If you put the money into it, obviously it's more risk to yourself, but you will make more money if the record does well. The second part of that is, do you want to find a distribution deal, pressing and distribution deal? So it takes the pressure and the strain off of you, but you will get a smaller percentage back on each unit that you sell. This can actually, I work a lot with the pressing and distribution deals because for a lot of it, I cannot be bothered to be worrying about certain aspects of the production side of things. It takes a lot of weight off of my mind. And in fact, the money that I would have made, the extra money that I would have made, is not much more than what I would get back if I had a pressing and distribution deal. So I would say that a good way to start off would maybe be a pressing and distribution deal, finding a good distributor, somebody that can get your music out there to the shops. On the other side of that, though, I would also say maybe starting small, maybe press a couple hundred copies, a few hundred copies, and then, you know, if either finding a good distributor or actually taking them to the shops yourselves. I mean, that's how it worked many years ago, before we had the internet and stuff. I mean, one of our good friends, Nightmares on Wax, that's what he did. I mean, that's what many of my inspirations and my peers did. They'd have a car, and they'd go around the shops that they wanted to sell it in, and they'd sell 20 copies here, 30 copies there, 10 copies there. If it's a good record, a record shop will take, a couple of handfuls off you. They'll take 20, 30, 40 copies off you.
If you've gone in as well and struck that relationship, they'll remember you and they'll explain, they'll push it more, won't they? They'll root for you.
That costs. You've got petrol costs, you've got to travel, you've got time, you've got all these things. So there is a lot of pros and cons to doing both, but you've got pressing and distribution deal, P&D deal, or doing it yourself. And if things go wrong when you're pressing it yourself, then obviously you have to fork out the money yourself. If things go wrong when you have a pressing and distribution deal, then you find a lot of the time that the distribution company will cover the costs for you. So yeah, I mean, I would advise personally that you would find a pressing and distribution deal with a good distributor that you can build a relationship with, and start there and sort of build it up. And then if you do find that your record label is really successful and your releases are successful and you've got a bit of money that you want to throw into it, then you can start pressing it yourself and you can start, taking more of the cream and doing it that way. But yeah, that would be my advice.
Anyone else to?
No, I think that's kind of covered it, really. Yeah.
Fortune favours the brave.
Is there any more detail than that, or is it just?
Have you got the artwork? Have you got the music? Have you got everything kind of lined up? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, of course. I mean, I was going to say, if you're doing it for the money, then obviously don't do it. Because,
yes, don't. Yeah.
Because, but at the same time, don't cut yourself short. Because I mean, I actually make money off my music, and that's not something that happens for everybody. But I obviously don't see there's a point really in doing it unless you're actually making a little something for all your time and energy that you're putting into it. So yeah, I would definitely have that as a bit of an aim, as like not to lose money. That's the key. Don't lose money, but then if you can't take that attitude, then anything that you make after that will be a bonus. So yeah.
Yeah, I would second that, and also say that services like Bandcamp, for instance, if you do actually do a really short run of something, maybe if you just want to do a short run of 7 inches, you could start off just by getting them on there and trying to spread it from on that service. Also, you're going to have to look into, I think it's important to have the physical product in the shops, but getting it on services as well and really pushing it that way. But Bandcamp is a really, really good place to start. And if you know contacts there, or you want to ask people for contacts there, they'll help you push your music. It's a really good service.
Bandcamp's very, very good as well. I use Bandcamp because with my latest Hallucinate thing, because not only does it give you direct a channel to your audience, but it also gives you, like, everybody that buys a record, you get their data, you get their email address, you get their contacts. Anytime you release another release, it goes straight to their inbox and lets them know. So it's really valuable. And also, the percentage of the money that you get from each release is much more than you would get from a download site, or maybe selling it to a distributor or something like that. You get actually the cream of the crop. You get the corn, basically. You get most of the money. So I would definitely recommend that. But you can also do that as well if you've got like a distribution deal. You can maybe do what I do, which is get yourself maybe 100 copies for yourself, and then just have them on Bandcamp, so you can have a direct link to your customers as well. So yeah, I think there's nowadays it's great because there's so many different ways of doing it. That it's really exciting. You don't have to have a lot of money backing you and stuff like that. You can actually have this cottage industry nowadays is just growing and growing now, and it's quite exciting finding all these new small labels that are just kind of DIY doing it yourself. It's great.
Amazing. Any other questions? Do we have time? Sorry, is it all right? Yeah, Sal. Hey up.
Hi guys, thanks for coming here. I just wanted to know, in regards to labels and sending out your demos to A&Rs, etc., in hopes to get signed, is it ever too early? As in, like, do you need to have somewhat of a following to send your demos to labels, or can you have like 100 followers and and still send your demo to labels?
To be honest, man, it is it is hard. It's definitely hard. I think because it comes back to the idea of doing it yourself is a lot of the time, because a lot of the labels that maybe you're going to send to are busy as well. There are a lot of or have got their a lot of the people saying about how it's a bit of a knockback when you're sending out your demos. It's often because a lot of the big labels have got their schedule tied up for like a year in advance sometimes, and have already got their pool of artists that they're working with. I wouldn't say it's ever like too early to send them to. I'd just be sure in yourself with what you're sending, and yeah, and don't be. I can only say don't be disheartened if you don't get a reply, because it's like I said, it depends. I mean, obviously, we don't know each other or the music or where you're sending. But the bigger labels, for example, I know for a fact it's like a lot of them are really tied up. So if you don't hear back, it's not the end of the world.
Which is an interesting take, because it might not be down to the actual taste of what you're actually sending over, which is probably the initial reaction you may think when you've not heard anything back. But it could be so many different factors. So yeah, that's
no, it really is. That is really what it is. Like the big labels, whatever that is, they've got their pool of artists. They're struggling to get all the stuff out that they've got. You know what I mean? So it's kind of this is when it comes into then. Oh, this is why more people are doing it themselves in terms of starting their own label, which is great. But just again, it comes back to being really confident in what you're doing and making sure. Also back to formats. I don't know if this talk is like especially about vinyl, but there's no harm in not, doing it digital only as well. It's like, don't be like, obviously we're all vinyl people, but there's no, it's got to be right for vinyl, otherwise you're just going to really it's not going to be good for anyone, So just be confident. I suppose it takes a certain level of awareness in terms of like, who is this music for? Who's buying it? I don't know. That probably comes with a level of, experience as well of working in it. But like having a bit of an idea of like, what market is this music for, and do they buy vinyl? First question, if you're thinking about doing vinyl, if you're setting up your own label. But no, in answer to your question, I don't think it's ever too early to send demos. Just be like super confident in what you're doing, But don't take it personally. It's my biggest advice, because it really could be. It's not. Yeah, it could be a number of things.
I would just like to add to that as well. Please send a playable link as well. Don't send download links, because labels and people who do A&R, they really, really don't want to have to download a file that's half a gig or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Send something that's playable, or find an interesting way of getting it into their hands as well. Maybe get a nice funky USB stick, go to the party, stick it in his hand. Hey man, I really like what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Build some kind of like little bit of rapport, bit of relationship. Make yourself stick out a little bit, Just sending a link or something, or just even making the CD look a bit funky, or, just something, that just makes you stick out a little bit. That's going to give you a little bit of a little leg up, above other people that are just like, Deutsch, send, Deutsch, send, whatever. It's like, it's kind of almost, you don't even get past the door with that kind of stuff, So I would really take a moment to think about how you present it and who you're presenting it to, and make sure that you do it in a way that kind of gets you across, your personality across. So it kind of almost makes people want to open it and listen to it straight away. It's like, oh, this guy seemed really nice. He was really cool, this guy. I'm gonna check this out. Or they might just go, oh, I just got back from the party, and like, what's that in my pocket? Oh, it's a USB stick. Oh, I'm gonna listen to that. It's like, oh, this guy is actually pretty good. But then on that, make sure you've got like a little bit of a thing where they can contact you. Don't just give a USB stick with no phone number. You know what I mean? Make it easy for yourself. Maybe put like a funky little bit of artwork or something, something that gets your personality across. So that would be my advice. Just kind of zhuzh it up a little bit.
Definitely. +1 on that. It's definitely. It comes back to the idea of everything, you know what I mean, of how you do it, how you present it, how you give it to the person. All about the idea, I think, is definitely the overriding message.
And also, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Yes. What's really just interesting is the fact that our phone never rings, and it's only people selling us stuff. And when somebody rings and asks about submitting a demo or what our demo policies are, then you remember them, and then you can build, and you're more likely to reply, or at least tell them, take the time to say, our schedule's too busy, but thank you, because you've gone that extra effort, because nobody picks up the phone anymore. So I think that's key.
I think that was a beautiful point to sort of So end it on real. That was nice. I mean, is there any other questions before? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
I think we can all say here that if anyone ever wants to get in touch about anything, you're always, you know, get our details, get us on Facebook, whatever it is.
Networking's key.
Honestly, any questions, we're always, I mean, I think I speak on behalf of all of us, we're all ears. You know, if you've got a question or a query about anything we've said that didn't make sense, or you don't know about that area, or you want to contact in an area, anytime, honestly, always here.
So I think to sort of summarise, it's all about the authenticity of yourselves, knowing who you're actually wanting to be signed by, and knowing your actual voice within your music. It's an obsession, it's a passion. It's something that can happen. Make sure you're around the right people who inspire you, put in the work ethic. But I definitely feel the commitment of you coming here this morning shows that you're already... you're already showing a development to your initiative of your career, and that's what it is. You're backing yourself, and I think that's the key through life, is learning the experience, but always back yourself. If any of the points that have been made help that grow even more, then obviously we've been a success here today for you. But keep on the dream, man, and turn it into a vision. That's us.
Big up, Ben. Thank you, Ben, as well. What a guy. What a guy.